Welcome to Sharkie's Gaming Controllers. I'm Sharkie, and in today's video I'll be taking a look at the Hyperkin X91 90s style controller. This controller is for Xbox One and Windows 10 PCs. So basically this is a modern controller that's designed to look like a retro controller. So first let's take a look at this packaging. So the front of the box here, you've got a nice image of the controller itself. And of course it says the name here, X91 90s style controller. Down the bottom here it says retro design, modern ergonomics, premium build, precision analog triggers. You've got the Hyperkin logo on the side here, and up here it says for Xbox One and Windows 10. And the top of the box is fairly plain, just has that background image on it and the title. The bottom is the same. The side has a little bit about the controller. So it says here, the Hyperkin X91 controller combines the classic look of a 90s style controller with features of a modern controller. This retro twist has a premium build that rivals its modern style competitors. The X91 is compatible with all of the Xbox One systems. On the other side here, it shows the side of the controller and it also shows you some features. On the back, it shows you another image of the controller there and also repeats the same sort of things that was on the front of the box. And this is a very nice packaging. You open it by just slipping the sleeve up. And inside you can see the controller sitting in this nice internal packaging. It's really nicely presented. So once you pull this controller from the box, you realize just how small it is. It is a really small controller, especially when you compare it to the official Xbox One controller. But it looks cool and it definitely has that retro styling to it. As you can see, they've designed it as a modern controller, but of course it's meant to look like controllers of the past. And I think it looks quite cool. Going into its features, we'll start with the cable here. So this is a 3-meter long cable, so it should be plenty length to go into your console to where you're sitting. And of course this is a USB controller, so it's got a USB end there. This cable is also a breakaway cable, so it splits down the bottom here. That way if you trip over the cable, this will separate so you won't pull your console with you. Going into its features. So first off, you've got 2 analog sticks here, and both these analog sticks do click down. They got a nice solid click to them, and they do feel nice to move. You've got a D-pad here. Now the D-pad does feel a bit soft to the touch and doesn't click much, except for one direction. So when you press it, it's quite quiet until you get to this one. So for some reason the right side here is just more louder than the other sides. But it feels okay, it works as intended, it just feels a little bit soft to the touch. The next buttons here are these 3 up the top, and they are much more tinier compared to the official controller. So you've got the Xbox button up top here, view button, and the menu buttons, and they are just really tiny buttons. You've got the A, B, and XY buttons over here, and they feel quite good to the touch and are very responsive. They are a bit flatter than the official controller, so they do feel slightly different, but they still have a nice sound and feel to them. On the back here, you've got your 2 bumpers and triggers. Now the bumpers do have a click to them. The click is probably not as loud as probably what you're used to on an official controller, but it still feels good to press and they are just as responsive. The triggers here are actually shaped, so they got a little groove in there so that when you hold your finger in, it sits nicely on the trigger so you can pull it really easily. And these triggers do feel good, but they are more resistant. So comparison to an official controller, when you press them there is definitely more resistance, but it still feels really nice to pull them. On the back here, you can see the grips on the controller. And these grips are quite good, so when you hold the controller, it slips into your hands like this. Obviously it's going to be smaller than what you're used to from a standard controller, but it fits quite nicely. You can easily grip those back grips there and hold it. It's not going to slip out of your hands or slip out or anything. It's quite solid to hold. You can reach everything as well. Everything is within reach. If you have larger hands, you might struggle to hold on to the grip and be comfortable because this controller is very small, so it might be something to be aware of. On the bottom here, you've also got a 3.5mm headset jack, so you can plug your headphones in just for convenience. Now, one thing to note as well with the design of this controller, it's got this shiny plastic mixed with like a matte plastic. So shiny plastic down here and shiny plastic on the triggers. It's really smooth to touch, and of course it's a bit of a fingerprint magnet as well, but it still feels quite nice. And of course the rest of the controller is this kind of matte black plastic. The build feels really solid on this. It really is a nice looking controller and a nice quality controller as well. So now let's compare the size of the X91 to the official Xbox One controller. So putting these two controllers side by side, immediately you can see the difference. Of course, the official controller is much bigger and it has these longer grips, and it's not as curved as the X91. Now the buttons, analog stick and D-pad are all pretty much the same. They're the same size. The only difference there is these buttons are a bit more flatter in comparison to these, which are a bit more rounder. And of course these top buttons here are much smaller compared to the official controllers. On the back, you can see the triggers and the bumpers look different as well. The triggers are a different shape here and the bumpers are much longer. So what exactly is this controller actually used for? Well, it's still a gamepad controller, although it does have a retro styling to it. Of course, it has modern functionality. That combination means it's an ideal controller to play retro games with, because you can play something that looks like a classic controller, but you're getting all the functionality of a modern controller. So it's a perfect of both worlds really, and this is really a nice controller to play those old games with. It feels good, it's responsive, and it looks really cool as well. Overall, the X91 controller is a pretty great controller. It has a high quality build and it works very well. I think Hyperkin have done a very good job at making an ergonomic controller that looks like a cool retro controller but has all the functionality of modern controllers. And I mean, look at it, it looks pretty cool. So if you're someone that likes playing retro games on Xbox or PC, this is a controller you may need to look at. It works well and it is very enjoyable to play retro games with it. And hey, if black is not your color, then there are other colors available. So this controller comes in white, red, blue and green. So there's plenty of color choice available for you to choose from. Anyway guys, if you like this video, then please hit that like button as it helps out a lot. Feel free to subscribe as I'll have heaps more gaming controllers and accessories up very shortly. While you're at it, hit that notification button and share this with your friends. Thanks again for watching guys, I'll see you in the next one.